Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing a tag that I was not tagged in. I just thought it sounded so fun, and that is the A to Z book tag. So there is a prompt for every letter of the alphabet, and I'm just gonna dive in and get started. A, an author you've read the most books from. I am thinking of two, maybe three. The first one that comes to mind is Charles Dickens. I have read quite a few of his books, and he is one of my favorite authors, and my cat is named after him, so that's fun. So Dickens is the first one I thought of, and then Frederick Bachman. I have read everything that he has written so far except for 2 books, I think. And I'm hoping to remedy that soon. And then possibly I would also say Ella Montgomery, because I have read a handful of books by her as well. She's another one of my favorites. I feel like it'd be very interesting to look back at my actual data. I feel like up until the last year or two, I didn't often reread writers, or at least not intentionally. So I definitely have started to more in the last year or so. So it'll be interesting to see how my answer to this question might change in the future. But right now, those are the ones I am thinking of. B, the best sequel ever. The book I thought of for this is The Testaments by Margaret Atwood. This is the sequel to The Handmaid's Tale. And I read both of these books a couple years ago, and I really enjoyed the first one. It was very good, very well done. It felt a little too real, but The Testaments I just thought was even better. The Testaments takes place 15 years after The Handmaid's Tale, and I just remember feeling so seen in this book, and yeah, I really liked it. C, currently reading. I am reading a handful of books, but the main one I'm trying to finish this week is The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. I need to finish it this week because it's going to be due at the library very soon. Maybe even tomorrow. I need to read it quickly. D, drink of choice while reading. Most of the time I would say coffee, and if I'm at home, I really like just a plain black coffee, hot. If I go out somewhere or if I'm out running errands and I'll pick up a coffee to bring home and read, then I get like an iced coffee. Today I have a sparkling water, but yeah, coffee is my go-to. E, e-reader or physical book. I go through phases. It used to only be physical books, and then I went through a period of time where it was primarily ebooks, and now I'm back in a mostly physical book phase, although I do read on my e-reader fairly often, and I'm really trying to get into the habit of reading at least a few minutes before bed every night, and that's usually from my e-reader. So yeah, I kind of go back and forth, but right now, primarily physical books. Also, my kids are upstairs playing video games, so if it gets loud, they are having a lot of fun playing with their cousins, I think, so it can get a little loud. F, fictional character you probably would have dated in high school. Oh, that's a very interesting question, because the type of people I would have gone for in high school, a lot of them probably now I'm like, ooh, that would have been like a red flag because of what I was taught about relationships and what I would have expected to want. I think just taking into consideration the type of person that I really was in high school, I'm trying to think. I don't know. I think I'm gonna say Gray from A Curse So Dark and Lonely. That series is a great series. It's been a few years since I've read it, but he seems like a genuinely nice guy, not the red flag type of guy. G, glad you gave this book a chance. Great question. This is cliche, but I still think of Fourth Wing because this is one of the ones that like I did not think I was going to like it, and I ended up loving it. Also, I would say for a more recent read, Piranesi, because it's probably not one that I would have picked up on my own, but Ellen recommended that to me, and I'm so glad she did because I really liked it. H, hidden gem book. So I feel like when I've talked in some other videos about lesser known books or hidden gems, I've brought up multiple times The Collected Regrets of Clover, and I do still stand by that, but let me think of one that's not one that I've talked about, or at least not talked about as much. Ooh, for a recent read, The Book of Gothel by Mary McMine. I really like this one, and I don't think I've seen anyone else talking about it on BookTube. I should search and try to find some other people talking about it because I did really like that book. Let's go way back in my reading history so that I'm not getting ones that I've already talked about this year on my channel. Oh, I got a good one for hidden gem, and that is The Head That Wears the Crown by Meredith McCaskey. My friend wrote this book, and it's so good. I, important moment in your reading life. Oh, there are several I could choose from. From childhood, I would say my parents reading aloud, particularly my mom reading aloud to us. I really feel like that set me on a trajectory for loving and enjoying books, and I'm really glad that she did. Let's see, in more recent years, I would say maybe the first time I read an Emily Henry book because it was my first contemporary romance. And I had previously, I'll be honest, I had previously judged the genre thinking that romance books were just trash, they were poorly written, there was nothing good or well done about them. And I'm so glad that I read Beach Read because I realized that there are some really well-written romance books. And it is ridiculous to write off a whole genre because there's so much depth and difference and individuality in the different writers within any given genre. So I feel like that's another defining moment in my reading life. J, just finished. What is the last book that I finished? Let me check my app. Oh, the last book I finished was The Book of Gothel by Mary McMine. Oh, that book is definitely gonna stick with me for a while. Okay, kind of books you wouldn't read. So previously I would have said horror, but I am finding myself ever so slowly starting to try things that are nearing horror. So that can't be my answer anymore. But I do still have to say any type of story, I have to be very careful with like certain trigger warnings, particularly like things happening to children. I cannot foresee myself ever reading like a thriller or horror or anything about anything like macabre happening to children. The exception might be with some literary fiction, like in Frederick Bachman, like real world things happen. I think there's a difference for me if it's something that is like, I guess one could argue that in thrillers those things could happen too. But to me, it's a difference to me in what feels over the top or just written to be sensational versus something that is actually part of normal life. And that could just be where my personal line has been drawn of what, I know I can't handle and I wouldn't enjoy, but that's somewhere in there is my line. L, the longest book you've read. Depending on the edition, it can change the page number, but it'll probably definitely be one of Dickens' books. I want to say, I think Dombey and Son and Little Dorrit, they were somewhere in the 800 to 1,000 page range. So my guess would be probably one of those. M, major book hangover. Once again, that's so funny. I didn't know that I'd be talking about this book this much on this channel, but Fourth Wing is the book that put me in, I think, the longest book hangover that I have ever had, at least in a very long time. And again, I was just shocked. I was not expecting it to be that good for me, but I could not pick up another book for about 2 weeks after that. And even at that 2-week point, I had to force myself to pick up a book because I was like, I need to keep reading something. Other than that, what else has given me a book hangover? Beartown, for sure. The Book of Gothel. I feel like I'm just repeating like recent reads that I've already talked about on this channel, but those are some of the ones that are just like sticking in my mind right now because they were so good. And number of bookcases you own. Right now I own 2, but hopefully this fall or maybe in the spring, I can revamp my bookshelf space because there's currently not enough room and they're actually CD cases, so they're not like deep enough for most books. We'll see how that changes up. But right now I have 2. Oh, one book you have read multiple times. I don't often reread books, but one series that I have read multiple times is the Emily of New Moon series. I've talked about this book on my channel before, but I just really resonated with Emily and I still do. I just think she's so great and I feel like she and I would have been best friends. She reminds me so much of myself and I love that book. What else? I've read To Kill a Mockingbird a number of times. Jane Eyre multiple times. I feel like most of the books that I've reread, especially more than just rereading once, I think are all classics. P, preferred place to read. Usually just on my couch in my living room, sometimes in bed, occasionally in a coffee shop, but preferred place, I would say on my couch. Q, a quote that inspires you. I have only recently started collecting book quotes and I don't have them easily accessible right now because they're on my phone and I'm using my phone indeed to record. But there is a quote about words and writing that I just love, and that is from Mark Twain. And I still remember the first time I heard this quote, just how much that just like, I don't know, It just resonated so much with me because I love words, and I feel like this just encapsulates it so well. But he said the difference between the right word and the almost right word is the difference between lightning and a lightning bug. And I love that imagery when I was young, and yeah, I think that's a cool quote. R, reading regret. Oh, that's interesting. Reading regret. I guess, I don't know, because I feel like even most of my like 1-star reads, I'm like, okay, well, you know, I read it and it's not for me, and that's fine. So I'm like, what would actually be like a regret? I think one that does come to mind, and it is because of something that happens to children, is a book by Orson Scott Card. What was the title of it? I think it was one of his newer releases. Lost and Found by Orson Scott Card. That's one that, as I was reading it with the book club, and as I was reading it, I was like, this is too much for me. I don't like this. But I kept reading it for book club, and then at the end, like, I did not, the way I felt inside, it was too much for me. But you know, some other people in the book club, it did not affect them that way. So it's not necessarily a critique on the book or the author or the content. It just, that was too much for me. And so I feel like that kind of feeling that I had, I guess I would put that as a reading regret. S, series you started and need to finish. I have a lot of series that I'm in the middle of. How many of them do I actually want to finish? I don't know. One that I have started and I've contemplated going back to read is the Inspector Gamache. Is that the name of the series? By Louise Penny? I think that's what the series is called, Inspector Gamache, or Chief Inspector Armand Gamache series. That's at least the main character. There are a lot of books in that series. I want to say like 20. I think I've read the first 6. So it's one that it's not like, oh, I have to keep going, but I am interested at some point to pick up some more of those mysteries. T, 3 of all-time favorite books. I feel like this has to be like extremely intentional, and this, because whatever I'm about to say is going to be like legally binding, but it's not, because I can, how do I whittle it down to 3? So I'm just going to go with like some of the ones that come to the top of my head. Emily New Moon, Beartown, and this is like so stressful to me to pick the third. I just said it doesn't have to be stressful. It's okay. Okay, I'm gonna say Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine. You, unapologetic fangirl for, could be an author or books or whatnot. Okay, unapologetic fangirl of Frederick Bachman and the Beartown series. How often have I mentioned that in this video alone? A lot. Unapologetic fangirl of the Cursebreaker series by Bridget Kemmerer. I feel like I'm an unapologetic fangirl of just reading and people just finding the books that bring them joy and the books that they want to read. And that can look so different from person to person, and what one person enjoys, another person might not, and the books they enjoy, someone else might not. And I find that so fun and beautiful, and I love that. V, very excited for this release more than others. So I don't often track upcoming new releases unless it's from like one of my favorite authors, but the only new release that's really on my radar right now, it's not like an all-time favorite, but it's the sequel to The Night Ends with Fire by KX Song. I'm trying to remember what the sequel is called. The Dragon Wakes with Thunder, and does that come out in August? When are you coming out? It is coming out in August. That's now. August what? Is it out? What's happening? August 19th. So I am excited for that one. I really liked the unique take that the first book had on the story of Mulan, so I'm excited for the sequel. W, worst bookish habit. I mean, worst according to who? Because I'm sure I have bookish habits that some people would be appalled by, but I find normal. Like I read 4, 5, 6 books all at the same time because I have to like break up my reading. But is that a bad habit? Is that a worse habit? I don't know. Worst bookish habit. That's all I can think of right now. X. X marks the spot. Start at the top left of your bookcase and pick the 27th book. I will have to go upstairs because that's where my bookshelves are, but I will be right back. Okay, the 27th book on my shelf is this copy of The Pickwick Papers, Part 2, and it's very old. I love old books so much. Oh my gosh, the pages. My old books make me so happy. And so when they're this old, like they don't have like a publication date, but the pages are just so beautifully yellow. And yeah, it makes me so happy. Why? Your latest book purchase. That would be the books for my book clubs because I was unable to get them from the library. But that would be The Rainfall Market and You're Fatally Invited. Z, a Z Snatcher book, a book that kept you up late reading. Okay, maybe this is my worst bookish habit, except it's not the worst for me because it's good for me, but it's very unusual, I feel like, because I like my sleep. And I have had chronic insomnia for like 20 years, so I prioritize my sleep. So I'm trying to think. It's very, very rare for me to stay up late reading. I'm trying to think of the last book where I did stay up. Honestly, I can't even think of it. Hi, Dickens. Well, that is my A to Z tag. Thanks for joining along on this alphabet fun tag. I am going to tag a few people in the comments, and as always, if I don't tag you and you want to do this, please jump in and do it and let me know because I would love to see your video. And until next time, happy reading.